Hello and welcome to the 1Q podcast by Blueprint, where we discuss what we think is the next wave of innovation for technology and businesses. This is a podcast where we ask our guests the one burning question about the future of digital transformation. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the 1Q podcast by Blueprint, where we discuss what we think is the next wave of innovation for technology and businesses. This is a podcast where we ask our guests the one burning question about the future of digital transformation. On our show today, we welcome Heather Glynn.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
So Heather, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at Blueprint, how you got to where you're at today, and what you think is cool about the Blueprint culture?
Absolutely. I started at Blueprint as the second operational employee. I've helped build out Blueprint from the operations side. I've facilitated and worked with the recruiting team. In addition to that, I've overseen our training and education program that we've launched into as of this year. One of the coolest things I think about Blueprint, and all of us have been in this scenario before, where you are given a box and you're asked to think within that box. And at Blueprint, we shed that box, and we're not only encouraged to think outside the box, but we are encouraged to break things and reinvent things, think of different ways and processes and procedures that are otherwise more efficient, and gain business traction.
That's awesome. Now you are Director of All Operations, which What does that mean at Blueprint?
Yeah. So Director of Operations at Blueprint Technologies. I oversee the HR team. I oversee the recruiting team and our training and education program.
And the facilities and pretty much just about everything else. Compliance, audit, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So Heather has a unique perspective and a unique role at Blueprint, where she gets to see everything that's going on in the business from front to back, which is pretty cool. So we're going to start off with the 1Q today for you. And I'm going to, I'll start off by telling a little bit about my story and how relevant it is to this question today, because it's something we're very passionate about. So for me, I grew up as a kid with three other siblings, so a family of four. My mom and dad were divorced when I was 4 years old, so I had a single mom that was raising four kids. And, she had relatively low education. I think she had like 1/4 of community college. And she was working in many different kind of male-dominated industries, which from construction to the accounting side of things. And she ended up working her ass off to really become a serial entrepreneur and to own multiple businesses. But the biggest challenge that she faced was always doing it as a female in a male-dominated industries. But then also, being a mom with four kids, and I constantly talk about that with my mom and my two older sisters, about how that is always a big challenge for females in the workplace on a number of different levels. And given your history, right, your son is three now, right? Yeah. And so Heather's right in the middle of that. And so the 1Q for the day for Heather is, what do you think the biggest thing women can do for their workplace advancement while maintaining their sense of either mom or sense of self, right? If they're not a mom yet, or not going to be a mom at all. So what do you think?
That's a great question, and it's one that resonates with me at a deep level as well. My mom's story is not entirely different than yours. 2 kids, single mom. My parents divorced at 4, so it's not entirely different. I think it starts off
just a difference in volume.
Yeah, I don't know about 4. Bless your mom. I think it all starts with knowing what your self is and what that looks like for you. I think one thing that can sidetrack women in their advancement is trying to, keep up with the Joneses or keep up with that other person that they may have started alongside, and they're both growing in their careers. And it's okay to take different routes and acknowledge that. So I think it definitely starts with knowing yourself and what your goals are, both personally and professionally. What you're willing to sacrifice to get there. Are you a family first, career second? Are you career first, family second? Is there a hybrid balance that works for you? And I'm probably that last. There's a hybrid and balance for me. I don't think that for me to be successful, I have to really be passionate and love what I'm doing and really know that that's what I want to be doing, because I am sacrificing things. You leave things behind when you go on business trips or you go to networking events. So really knowing what you stand for and what that looks like. I also think you have to know what your unique value proposition is and what you bring to the table. So what's your unique perspective? How do you add value to the overall organization that you're working for? And knowing that that's part of who you are. It's not that you check that at the door, at 5 o'clock when you leave, and that you pick it back up at 8 o'clock when you get to work the next day. We also know that there's no hours that bind somebody to what they're passionate about. But I also think that you have to really have a voice, sit at the table and lean in and use that voice. I'm a huge advocate, or I love the book that Sheryl Sandberg wrote. It's called Lean In. She's the current COO of Facebook. Yeah. And she has a lot of interesting stories that she tells throughout this book that really truly hit home. But really it's about raising your hand and speaking your voice. In elementary school and junior high and high school and even college, we're all taught the same program. We're all tested the same way. But the reality of the real world and that work environment, and one of the things I love about Blueprint is that doesn't apply. Real world is not think like everybody else. It's how do you think differently? What do you bring to the table? What's your unique perspective? And part of it is your history and how you're raised and the experiences that got you to where you are. So really understanding what that looks like for yourself.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's a really good summary. Talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned two things which sometimes can come in conflict in this context, which is the difference between somebody's identity and then the route that they're taking. And how those aren't necessarily connected, right? How do you, as you're going down a route, a career route, how do you maintain identity when it may not necessarily be the prescribed route for success or advancement?
I still think that goes back to being true to yourself and knowing what that looks like. So your identity and who you are and what you believe in, what your core values are, what your personal mission statement is in life, it should very much align with what you're doing in life, right? So if you are in a job that's not congruent with what you believe, or you feel that there's moral misalignment, then you're not going to be as successful and as confident at what you're doing in life. I think it's really about using your unique perspective, using your set of core values to your advantage and being an advocate for yourself. I think that's one of the biggest challenges for women in the workplace at all today is that, men are promoted. There's some studies that demonstrate men are promoted based on their potential, where women are promoted based on their history. So what they've done, that they demonstrated success in the past. And a large part of that is within our own hands. It's knowing that what we can do, what we're capable of. It's being confident in that. And it's also being our own advocate, raising our hand, sharing our voice, sharing our experiences.
Well, it's also an interesting differentiation is when you talk about what you're capable of. I notice that a lot of females actually speak to what you're capable of what they've done in the past and
exactly.
they know they're good at, versus what they're capable of as far as a capacity to do in the future.
Right.
Which is an interesting distinction.
Yeah, and it's a big challenge in today's society, right? So men who are confident in what they do and speak in terms of their capacity and capabilities versus their past successes, they come across as confident, assertive, which are all good things, good qualities. But when women demonstrate that, if we come across as passionate or assertive or confident, it's bitchy or it's catty or it's throwing somebody under the bus, and that's not the case at all. And so in society's eyes, we're viewed very differently in how we project our opinions and our successes.
So let me give you a real world example. I have a really good friend of mine that she's a mom of 3, and her kids are getting a little bit older, and so they're pretty independent now, and she's also an attorney, and she's ready to get back into the workplace, and she really wants to make a charge. Yeah. But she has this gap.
Right.
She has a gap, and she also doesn't really know what she's capable of anymore because it's been a little bit of a gap. What single piece of advice would you give her to help her along in her accelerating her career advancement?
So redefine what it is that she wants to do now, because in that gap where she maybe stepped back a little bit, she's probably had a lot of experiences that have changed what she wants to do potentially, or changed her worldview on things. So I would say, know what it is that you want to do. Also use the resources out there. Today in our world, there are so many platforms, meetups, groups, blogs, posts, that help support women who are making that transition from I was either a stay-at-home mom, or maybe I took a step back in my career to focus on my children and now I want to get back into it. Blueprint, we partner with a lot of organizations that encourage that. And we actually recently hired somebody who came out of, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 8 years. I took a back seat, let my husband drive his career, and now they're shifting that. She said, I want to get back in the workplace. I want to drive my career. And he's supporting that with her, but it's been an interesting transition to watch her go through.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so awesome. Thank you for coming on the podcast. If anybody
pleasure.
wants to reach out to you and find out more about these groups that enable women to come back into the workplace or advance their career, if they just want to kind of hear your story or want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear from any of our listeners. My email is heather@bpcs.com. I'm at my computer quite often, so I will pretty responsive to that, but I'd love to hear from many of our listeners. Everybody's stories help shape kind of what we do at Blueprint, who we are at Blueprint, and how we can help support the women in the industry and advancement. So absolutely would love to hear from everyone.
And then just anybody that wants to find out more about Blueprint in general from a social media standpoint, where should they go?
We're everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. bpcs.com. We are also on Instagram. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. Blueprint Technologies. You can find us at all of those social sites.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. Again, this is the 1Q podcast by Blueprint, where we discuss what's the next wave of innovation for technology and businesses. So thanks again, Heather.
Thanks, Ryan.